Well, good morning and welcome back. One of the big stories in 2013 was the rise and fall of the fortunes of the GOP's Tea Party. From pushing to defund Obamacare to shutting down the government, the Tea Party made a lot of headlines, but their influence appears to be waning, especially in light of the two-year budget deal worked out between Republican Congressman Paul Ryan and Democratic Senator Patty Murray. Shortly after the House passed the budget, Speaker John Boehner lashed out over criticism of the compromised plan.
Just into this fight to defund Obamacare and to shut down the government. Most of you know, my members know, that wasn't exactly the strategy that I had in mind. But if you'll recall, the day before the government reopened, one of the people at one of these groups stood up and said, well, we never really thought it would work. Are you kidding me?
Well, now some big business leaders are considering helping to wage primary campaigns against some Tea Party members who helped engineer the fall standoff. Will we see further widening of the fracture between those willing to compromise and those who won't at any cost? That's our topic selected by Mustafa Tameez this half hour. He's in our newsroom with Jackie Bally and Chris Tritico, and we also want to hear from you. Right now is a good time to share your thoughts on Facebook and on Twitter. All right, panel, what do you guys think?
Well, we're going to let Mustafa, I'm not going to introduce the topic like I usually do. We're going to let Mustafa, it's his pick, so Mustafa's going to introduce the topic, then we'll take it away.
Well, I think it's the biggest story because the Tea Party is not just internal politics within the Republican Party, but they've been able to shut down the United States government. So it goes beyond that. And I think that we function in a two-party system for 2 centuries, and now we're functioning like a third party. The Tea Party not only has a rebuttal to the State of the Union address, they also have their own caucus, they have their own leadership, they vote as a bloc. So for all intents and purposes, it is functioning as the third party, and this coming primary, this coming year, is going to really determine the future, because if they're able to unseat many incumbent establishment Republicans, then we will not just be in a gridlock, we'll just have a government that's just ineffective. So over time, I think it's going to be a big deal, but this year, with the rise of Ted Cruz, he's an absolutely dream for the Tea Party, but he's a nightmare for the Republican and Republican establishment.
And this is the question, really, can a Tea Party person like Ted Cruz win a national race?
Well, I don't think he can win a national race, but their following is substantial enough where they're having a tremendous impact on how we govern. You know, let's remember, we elect people to go to Washington or go to Austin or go to City Hall, and then we expect them to run the government. If your basic ideology is that government is bad and we should end government and we should end government wherever it is, then how are you going to do the people's work?
What about that, Jackie Bally? If you're going to Washington just to be obstructionist, are you really doing what the people elected you to do?
The Tea Party is called a movement for a reason. The reason why we call it a movement is because it was in a direct contradiction and a reaction to the election of our current president. And you will see there is a base that represents Ted Cruz and other conservative leaders. There's not a difference in ideology between the Tea Party leaders and the GOP establishment. There is a difference in approach. And that's what we saw during the last session. I think because of the leaders who are at the head of the Tea Party movement, they're younger. It's a generational difference. But you will continue to see Tea Party members like Ted Cruz and Rubio. They will continue to have the stroke and support from their base because there is a constituency that wants to see their policies and their platform represented.
And I got to go to Dominic, but when we come back, I want you to comment on Texas is a strong Tea Party. You've got
Correct.
Strong Tea Party places in pockets of the country.
Correct.
But that doesn't mean they can win a national race. And we're going to come back to that in a minute. Dominic's checking the social media account.
Yeah, on my Facebook page, Jeff Dale says those Republicans who advocate truly limited government should leave now. The rest should join the Democrats, which is where they belong. The grim old plutocracy can then die a natural death.
I read that. Jeff has words that are not in my vocabulary.
I know, I was like, does that have anything to do with shoes?
Donnelly and I are always thinking about shoes. Yeah.
But let's talk about that for a minute. You know, you've got these strong, Texas is a very strong Tea Party state, but Texas can't carry a national race all by itself. And what we're seeing with Boehner coming out and directly attacking the Tea Party is the rift that Mustafa's talking about. That doesn't get the Republicans any national wins.
But you also saw a rift in the Democrat Party. Of course, it wasn't played out in the media the way it has been because the media is so liberal. The same argument that people have been saying that Ted Cruz is not electable in a national race, we once said about Barack Hussein Obama, and he definitely proved the country wrong when he was elected. So who can predict what's going to happen in the future? But a lot of people, you've seen fractions happen within the Democrat Party. It happened years ago. Now you're seeing, again, a split in the approach and thinking happening in the GOP party, but it's played out more in the media because of their liberal slant.
We're almost out of time, but every party has rifts. But I've never, since I've followed politics for the last 25 years or 30 years, seen something as strong as this one openly played out.
It's a third party. They actually have a rebuttal to the State of the Address. I mean, they do everything like what a party does. And you know, as we talk about like liberal media, you go, what liberal media? I mean, the Wall Street Journal is not a liberal media. It's one of the national newspapers. There's a television channel, cable channel, completely devoted to Republican idealism. So I think that this sense of like beating up on government, beating up on you know,
and beating up on your own party,
and beating up on just anything that's establishment, right, has become the Tea Party mantra,
right,
is to break things down rather than build things up.
We're going to have to leave it right there, and I think that what we're going to find, Donnelly, is in the midterm election this year, we'll see how bad this rift hurt the Republican Party if it did.
We'll see. Thanks so much, guys.